Tonight at exactly 11:30 p.m. Eastern Time, Jupiter stations direct at 15 degrees and 5 minutes of Cancer. And that single detail changes everything about what this moment actually means. Because 15 degrees of Cancer is not just any degree. According to the medieval Arabic astrologers Al-Biruni and Al-Abishis, whose calculations have guided celestial interpretation for over 1,000 years. 15 degrees of Cancer is the exact degree where Jupiter reaches its highest possible power, its exaltation, the throne of the greater benefic. And tonight, after 121 days of moving backward through the sky, after 4 months of silence, 4 months of pulling its energy inward like a breath held beneath dark water, Jupiter does not just resume forward motion. It wakes up on its throne. Most people will hear that Jupiter went direct and scrolled past it. Another transit, another forecast, another reason to check an app and move on. But this is not that. What is happening tonight belongs to a category so rare that the last time Jupiter stationed direct at this exact degree of exaltation was over 12 years ago. And even then, the surrounding sky looked nothing like this. Right now, Saturn and Neptune are fused together in the first degree of Aries for the first time in approximately 9,000 years. Mercury is retrograde in Pisces, stirring the waters of everything left unspoken. And in 10 days, every single planet in the solar system will be moving forward simultaneously. That kind of planetary alignment does not happen in a typical year. It barely happens in a typical lifetime. And the fact that Jupiter is choosing this exact window, this exact degree to wake up and move forward is not coincidence. It is the sky delivering a message with the precision of a master architect who has been planning this moment for decades. I want to take my time with this because I think the tendency when big astrological events happen is to rush toward the meaning before we have actually felt the weight of it. So let me start by building the foundation properly. Because if you understand what Jupiter in Cancer actually is, not just what the textbooks say, but what it feels like in a human life, then everything else I am going to tell you tonight is going to land differently. Jupiter is the planet of expansion, of abundance, of the principle that says more is possible, that growth is available, that the universe is generous by nature. Wherever Jupiter moves in your chart, it brings an amplification of whatever that house or sign represents. But not all Jupiter transits are equal. Jupiter moves through 12 signs over the course of approximately 12 years, and in most of those signs it functions well, but not extraordinarily. It does its job, it expands what is there. But in Cancer, something different happens. Cancer is the sign of the mother of the home, of emotional roots, of the place inside you that holds your most tender and most essential sense of belonging. It is the sign of nourishment, of memory, of the people and places that made you who you are before the world had a chance to reshape you. And Jupiter, the planet of abundance and blessing, in the sign that governs all of that. That is not just a good transit. That is a feast. That is Jupiter sitting at the most nourishing table in the Zodiac and saying, "Let me show you what true abundance actually looks like." Not the kind that fills your bank account while leaving your heart empty. The kind that fills the places inside you that you forgot were hungry. But here is what makes tonight specific rather than general. Jupiter has been retrograde in Cancer since late last year. For 4 months, that expansive energy has been turned inward. Instead of bringing growth outward into your career or your opportunities or your visible life. Jupiter retrograde in Cancer has been doing something quieter and in many ways more profound. It has been bringing growth inward. Into your relationship with your own emotional life, into your sense of belonging, your family patterns, your private world, the underground river of who you are beneath everything you show to anyone else. And retrograde planets are interesting because they tend to revisit. They go back over territory that was not fully processed. So Jupiter retrograde in Cancer has been moving backward through your emotional history in a sense, asking you to revisit the places where you have been small in your self-care, the places where you have given nourishment to everyone around you while quietly starving yourself, The places where an old family wound or a childhood pattern has been limiting what you believe you are allowed to have. That retrograde period was not punishment. It was preparation. It was Jupiter going back to collect something it left behind before it was ready to move the whole story forward. And tonight it is ready. Tonight at 15 degrees of Cancer, at the precise mathematical point where the ancient astrologers said Jupiter reaches its maximum potency. The planet of expansion and blessing turns direct. It resumes forward motion. It takes everything that has been incubating underground for 4 months and begins moving it toward the surface, toward visibility, toward real-life manifestation. And the fact that this is happening at the exaltation degree, not just in the sign of exaltation, but at the specific degree within that sign, where exaltation is considered complete and total, means the quality of what is being released tonight is extraordinary. This is not a trickle. This is the full current. This is Jupiter operating at 100% of its capacity in the most emotionally intelligent and genuinely abundant expression it is capable of, turning forward and beginning to move. Now, I need to talk about the sky surrounding this moment because Jupiter does not station direct in a vacuum, and the context here is staggering. Let me start with Saturn and Neptune because what is happening between those two planets right now is something that the astronomical record suggests has not occurred in approximately 9,000 years. 9,000 years ago, human civilization as we understand it was still in its infancy. The wheel had not been invented, writing did not exist, and the planetary alignment that is occurring right now in the sky above us was last present over that ancient landscape. Saturn and Neptune have come together in a conjunction at 0 degrees Aries. The Aries point, the very first degree of the entire zodiac, the degree where the wheel of the sky begins. This is not a minor supporting detail to the story of Jupiter stationing direct. This is a co-equal headline that changes the meaning of everything happening around it. Here's why this matters so much. Saturn is the principle of reality, of structure, of the patient and disciplined work of building something in the physical world that will last. It is the planet of time, of consequence, of the way that the choices you make today become the life you are living 5 years from now. Neptune is the principle of the infinite, of the dream, of the dissolving of all boundaries between self and something larger. It is the planet of spiritual longing, of creative vision, of the deep oceanic knowing that lives beneath the surface of rational thought. Alone, Saturn can be harsh, rigid, limiting in ways that feel punitive. Alone, Neptune can be escapist, ungrounded, lost in visions that never make contact with reality. But together, Saturn and Neptune create the possibility of something that is extraordinarily rare in a human life. The ability to take a dream and give it bones, to take something that has lived in the realm of the possible, the wished for, the deeply longed for, and translate it into something with a timeline and a structure and an actual chance of becoming real. And this conjunction is happening at 0 Aries, the first degree, the ignition point of the entire zodiac. The place that astrologers have always associated with the moment where something that has been purely potential becomes actual, where the seed breaks open and the first shoot reaches toward light. Saturn conjunct Neptune at 0 Aries is not just a conjunction between two planets. It is a conjunction between the dream and the discipline occurring at the precise degree that represents beginning. It is the cosmos saying in as clear a language as it possesses, the time for holding this vision in the waiting room of your life is over. The construction phase has started. The foundation is being laid right now. And whether you are conscious of it or not, whether you are participating intentionally or accidentally, something new is being built in your life in this period. The only question is whether you are the architect of it, or whether you are going to look up in a year and find that something was built without your full creative participation. And then there is Mercury. Mercury is currently retrograde in Pisces. And I want to be careful here because Mercury retrograde has become something people joke about, a meme, a convenient explanation for why their emails went to the wrong folder. But the actual astrological reality of Mercury retrograde in Pisces right now is not a joke. It is a deeply intentional piece of the story. Mercury governs the mind, the voice, the way you process information, the way you communicate, the way you make sense of your experience. In Pisces, Mercury is already operating in a space that is more intuitive than logical, more feeling than thinking, more oriented toward meaning than toward fact. Retrograde Mercury in Pisces is not about communication breakdowns in the practical sense, although those can happen. It is about something much more interior. It is about the revisiting of everything you have left unspoken, the conversations you never finished, the feelings you translated into silence because you did not have the words or the courage or the timing, the truths you know in the water of your body that you have never quite managed to bring all the way up into language. Mercury retrograde in Pisces is pulling all of that back up to the surface right now. It is giving unfinished emotional and communicative business another chance to be addressed, to be expressed, to be completed, or consciously released. And the reason this matters in the context of Jupiter stationing direct tonight is that you cannot fully receive what Jupiter in Cancer is offering if there is unfinished emotional business blocking the doorway. Jupiter in Cancer is about emotional abundance, about genuine nourishment, about the kind of belonging and security and warmth that makes life feel worth living at its most essential level. Mercury retrograde in Pisces is doing the interior housekeeping that makes space for all of that. It is clearing the emotional backlog. It is saying whatever you have been holding unsaid, whatever you have been carrying in the private water of your interior life without ever setting it down. Now is the time. Not because the timing is convenient, because the sky has created a rare window where that clearing work and that receiving work are happening simultaneously. You are being cleaned out and filled up at the same time. That is not discomfort without purpose.
Okay.
That is transformation with a very specific direction. And then in 10 days, something happens that almost never happens. Every single planet in the solar system will be moving direct simultaneously. There will be no retrograde planets. The entire solar system, all bodies, all principles, all directions of celestial energy will be pointed forward. When that happens, the energy that has been building during this retrograde period, the interior work, the emotional archaeology, the revisiting and the releasing, all of it gets a green light. All of it gets pointed toward the future at once. The magnitude of that collective forward motion is difficult to overstate. Think of it like a river that has been moving around bends and through channels and occasionally doubling back, and then suddenly every single tributary joins the main current and they all flow in the same direction at the same time with a force that is the sum of everything that has been accumulating. That is what is coming in 10 days. And Jupiter stationing direct tonight at its point of greatest power is the first domino. It is the initiating movement before everything else lines up and moves. So let us hold the full picture for a moment before we move into what this means for each sign specifically. Tonight, Jupiter wakes up at its exaltation degree after 4 months of interior work and begins moving forward with its full power restored. Simultaneously, Saturn and Neptune are fused in the first degree of Aries. It's the most potent beginning point in the Zodiac, working together to translate dream into structure and vision into reality for the first time in 9,000 years. Mercury is retrograde in Pisces, clearing the emotional channels and giving everything unspoken one more chance to find its voice. And in 10 days, the entire solar system aligns in forward motion. If you have been feeling like something enormous is on the verge of shifting, you are not imagining it. If you have been feeling like a chapter is ending and another is beginning, and the two chapters are overlapping in a way that is both exciting and disorienting, that feeling is accurate. If you have been feeling like old things are coming back up just when you were trying to move forward, that is Mercury doing exactly what it is supposed to do, clearing the path rather than blocking it. And if you have been feeling like something you have been building inside yourself for a long time is finally getting close to becoming real, Jupiter direct at 15 degrees Cancer in the company of this sky is saying, you are right. The invisible work is almost done. The visible work is about to begin. Now let me take all of this into the specifics of each sign, because the collective weather matters, but the personal forecast is where astrology becomes genuinely useful. These planetary movements land differently in different charts. Activate different houses, speak to different themes in your life. So let us go through all 12 signs and talk about what this sky is actually doing in your story. If you are an Aries, I want to begin by acknowledging that the sky right now is more focused on your sign than it has been in a very long time. Saturn and Neptune meeting at 0 degrees Aries means they are sitting in your first house, the house of self, the house of your identity. Your body, the way you show up in the world, the first impression you make, and the deepest sense you carry of who you actually are. Having Saturn and Neptune both in your first house simultaneously is extraordinarily rare and extraordinarily significant. Neptune in your first house has been for some period of time, depending on your exact chart, dissolving the identity you constructed. It's not destroying it maliciously. It's dissolving the parts of it that were built for other people's expectations, built for approval, built to survive a context you have already outgrown. Neptune in the first house can feel like a loss of self at first, because so much of what you thought was you turns out to have been costume. But what remains after Neptune does its work is something truer, something that belongs to you rather than to the story you inherited about who you should be. And now Saturn arrives in your first house alongside Neptune. Saturn is ready to help you build that truer self into something stable and lasting and real. Jupiter direct in your fourth house tonight is activating your home, your family, your sense of emotional belonging. Something that has been unresolved in your private life or your family system is ready to move forward. An opportunity to create genuine emotional security, perhaps literally in terms of your living situation, or perhaps in terms of the inner sense of being at home in yourself, is now available in a way it was not 4 months ago. Mercury retrograde in your 12th house is clearing old spiritual and psychological material before that opportunity can be fully received. Let the clearing happen. What is rising to the surface in your inner life right now is not an obstacle. It is the last thing that needed to be addressed before you step fully into this new chapter of yourself. If you are a Taurus, Jupiter stationing direct in your third house is activating something specific about the way you think, the way you communicate, the learning you have been doing, and the connections in your immediate environment. The third house governs the people closest to you geographically and circumstantially. Siblings, neighbors, colleagues, the daily conversations that make up the texture of your ordinary life. Jupiter direct here after 4 months of retrograde means something in one of those relationships or in your immediate intellectual environment is ready to expand forward. A conversation that stalled, an opportunity to learn or teach or connect that seemed to be going backward is about to resume its forward momentum. Saturn and Neptune in Aries are in your 12th house right now, and that is significant in a very particular way. The 12th house is the house of what is hidden, of the unconscious, of the things that operate in your life from behind the scenes. Saturn and Neptune together in your 12th house for this extraordinary conjunction means that the dream being given structure and the structure being infused with dream is happening in a part of your life that is not yet visible. The foundation being built right now may not show up on the surface of your life until later in the year. But the underground work is real and it is consequential. Uranus is also finishing its long transit through your first house, still reshaping your identity before it moves into your second house in a few months. You are not the same person you were when Uranus entered Taurus years ago. The renovation of self that has been happening is in its final stages. And Mercury retrograde in your 11th house is bringing old friendships, old community connections, and old dreams about your future back into the conversation. Something about who you want to surround yourself with as you move into this next chapter is being clarified. If you are a Gemini, your ruling planet Mercury is the one that is retrograde right now, which means you are feeling this period in a more personal way than most signs. The retrograde is happening in your 10th house of career, public reputation, and the direction of your long-term ambitions. Old professional questions that you thought were settled are reopening. A path you considered and then moved past is returning for a second look. Someone from your professional past may reappear. And while Mercury retrograde gets a reputation for causing problems in your 10th house right now, it is doing something more valuable than convenient. It is giving you a chance to reconsider the direction you are heading with your career before Jupiter direct in your second house of money and values amplifies everything forward. Jupiter direct in the second house after this 4-month retrograde period is one of the most financially and practically significant transits you can have. It is the planet of abundance turning forward in the house of your material resources and your sense of what you are worth. If Jupiter retrograde in your second house has been asking you to look inward at your relationship to money and value and to question whether you have been underestimating yourself financially or professionally, then Jupiter direct is about to show you what is possible when you answer that question with a higher estimation of your own worth. Saturn and Neptune in your 11th house are restructuring your social world and your sense of collective purpose. The communities and collaborations that align with who you genuinely are becoming are forming, while the ones that belonged to who you used to be are gently dissolving. If you are a Cancer, tonight is yours in a way that almost no astrological event belongs to any single sign. Jupiter, the planet of abundance and blessing, is not just in your sign. It is stationing direct at the exact degree of its exaltation within your sign, which means it is waking up at full power in your first house, the house of your own self and identity and physical presence in the world. This is the sky putting its most generous and powerful planet directly at your front door and turning it to face forward after 4 months of looking inward. What has been growing quietly inside you during this retrograde period? The deeper self-knowledge, the emotional clarity, the revised understanding of what you genuinely need and deserve is now ready to express itself in your visible life. And the exaltation degree matters because it means Jupiter is not just casually generous here. It is operating at maximum capacity on your behalf. The doors that open for Cancer in the weeks following this station are not small doors. They are the big ones. The ones that change the shape of a year or a chapter. Mercury retrograde in your 9th house is doing some clearing work on your belief systems and your sense of the larger meaning of your life before those doors open. Something you believed about what was possible for you, or what you were allowed to want, or what the universe was willing to provide, is being revised right now. Let it be revised. The belief that was there before was too small for what Jupiter direct at your exaltation degree is about to make available. If you are a Leo, Jupiter stationing direct is happening in your 12th house. And I want to be careful here because the 12th house has a reputation that is more foreboding than it deserves. The 12th house is the house of the hidden, the unconscious, the spiritual, the things that happen behind the scenes of the visible life. Jupiter, retrograde in your 12th house for 4 months, has been an extraordinarily rich period of interior development. Even if it has not looked like much from the outside. Spiritual insight, psychological depth, creative incubation, the quiet dissolution of old patterns that have been operating in your life from underground. All of that has been Jupiter's work in your 12th house. And as Jupiter turns direct there tonight, what has been developing in that interior and invisible space begins to move toward manifestation. The 12th house is immediately behind the first house in the chart. What incubates in the 12th eventually births into the first. And Jupiter direct in your 12th house tonight means the gestation is nearly complete. The moon, wherever it is in your chart right now, is adding an emotional layer to this, inviting you to feel what is stirring rather than immediately translating it into action. Saturn and Neptune in Aries are in your 9th house of belief, philosophy, higher education, and the larger meaning you assign to your life. The conjunction there is doing something foundational to your worldview. A philosophical framework that has been in place for years is either being confirmed and deepened or fundamentally revised. Both outcomes are valuable. One gives you solid ground to stand on. The other gives you more honest ground to stand on. If you are a Virgo, Mercury is your ruling planet and it is retrograde in your 7th house of partnerships. Which means the theme of your one-on-one relationships is very much alive and active in your life right now. Something about a significant partnership, romantic, professional, or deeply personal, is being revisited. A conversation that needed to happen is being given another opportunity. A dynamic you thought you understood is revealing layers you had not previously seen. Mercury retrograde in the 7th house for a Virgo is not comfortable because you like clarity and clean lines, and the retrograde is doing neither of those things in your most significant relationships. But Venus exalted in Pisces alongside Mercury is tempering that discomfort with compassion. Whatever is being revealed about your partnerships right now is being shown to you through a lens of genuine feeling rather than cold analysis. Jupiter, stationing direct in your 11th house of community, friendship, and future visions, is extraordinary good news for your social world and your sense of collective purpose. Something about your place in a community, your network, or a shared vision you have been working toward with other people has been quietly building during the retrograde and is now ready to move forward with renewed momentum. Saturn and Neptune in Aries are in your 8th house of shared resources, intimacy, and transformation. The restructuring happening there is deep and in some ways slow, but it is real. How you share yourself, your resources, and your most vulnerable interior with others is being rebuilt on more honest foundations. If you are a Libra, Venus is your ruling planet and she is currently exalted in Pisces, which means the planet that governs your love. Your beauty, your sense of harmony, and your relational intelligence is operating at extraordinary power right now. Even before we get to Jupiter or Saturn or any of the other major players in the sky. Just the placement of Venus alone is significant for Libra. What you find beautiful right now, who you feel drawn toward, the quality of the love you are capable of giving and receiving, all of it is operating at a higher register than usual. Venus, exalted in Pisces in your 6th house, is pouring beauty and meaning into the ordinary fabric of your daily life. And Mercury retrograde nearby is pulling old feelings and old connections back into the present, giving unfinished relational business another chance to be completed or consciously released. Jupiter stationing direct in your 10th house tonight is one of the most career-significant transits you can experience. The planet of expansion and opportunity waking up in the house of your public life, your professional reputation, and your long-term ambitions after 4 months of retrograde introspection means the seeds you have been planting inwardly in your career and your sense of direction are ready to start showing above ground. Doors that seem to be closed or stalled are about to start opening again. And because Jupiter is in exaltation tonight, what moves through those doors has the quality of genuine blessing rather than just incremental progress. If you are a Scorpio, Jupiter stationing direct in your 9th house is activating the house of belief. Philosophy, higher learning, travel, and the question of what larger meaning your life is oriented around. The 9th house is where we go to find out what we believe about the nature of reality, about what is possible, about whether the universe is fundamentally supportive or fundamentally indifferent. Jupiter retrograde in your 9th house has been doing something very specific. It has been inviting you to question the beliefs that have been governing your life, not to destroy them, but to test them. To ask which beliefs are genuinely yours and which ones you inherited without examining. Which philosophical or spiritual frameworks are actually working in your life, and which ones have become containers you have outgrown. Jupiter direct in the 9th house now means those tested and refined beliefs are ready to be acted on. The revised worldview is ready to be lived rather than just contemplated. Mercury retrograde in your 5th house is bringing old creative projects, old romantic connections, and old sources of joy back into the conversation. There is something from your creative or romantic past that is asking to be revisited, not because you went wrong there, but because something was left unfinished that still has value. Saturn and Neptune in Aries are in your 6th house of daily routines, health and the work you do in service to something. The restructuring happening there is about what your everyday life actually looks like on the ground. A new discipline, a new relationship to your body and your health. A new daily structure that actually serves your evolution rather than just maintaining the status quo. These things are being built right now, whether or not you are fully aware of it yet. If you are a Sagittarius, Jupiter is your ruling planet, and its station direct tonight is deeply personal for you, even though it is occurring in Cancer. Your eighth house. The eighth house is the house of depth, of transformation, of shared resources and intimate merging, of the psychological underground where the most significant and least visible work of your life gets done. Jupiter retrograde in your eighth house for 4 months has been taking you deep. Deeper than Sagittarius is usually comfortable going because you prefer the broad horizon to the interior cave. But the interior cave is where the treasure is right now. Jupiter retrograde in the eighth house has been surfacing what lives in your psychological underground, the patterns inherited from your family, the wounds that have been driving choices without your full awareness, the potential that is locked inside parts of yourself you have not yet fully integrated. And as your ruling planet stations direct in that house tonight, what has been uncovered is ready to be worked with consciously rather than simply endured. Mercury retrograde in your fourth house is adding to the theme of interior excavation, bringing up family material, childhood memories, and the deep roots of your emotional identity for reconsideration. It can feel like a lot of backward looking at once. But the forward motion that follows a period of this much honest interior work is proportionally significant. Saturn and Neptune in your fifth house are restructuring your relationship to joy, creativity, romance, and the parts of life that exist for their own sake. A new relationship to what genuinely lights you up, as opposed to what you have been doing out of habit or obligation, is being built. If you are a Capricorn, Saturn is your ruling planet, and right now it is sitting in Aries in a conjunction with Neptune that has not occurred in 9,000 years. Having your ruling planet participate in one of the most historically significant conjunctions of modern astrological history is not a small thing for your sign. Saturn in Aries is in your fourth house, the house of home, family, emotional foundations, and the private world you carry inside you that most people never see. Neptune is there alongside it. The conjunction in your fourth house is doing something that is both destabilizing and ultimately deeply constructive. It is dissolving the emotional structures you've built for survival rather than for genuine flourishing. The way you learn to be in a family, the emotional habits you develop to navigate your earliest home environment, the deep patterns of self-reliance that have served you in the world but have perhaps also kept you from allowing genuine nurturing in. All of that is Neptune's territory in your fourth house. And Saturn arriving to that same space is saying that once the dissolution is complete, once the hollowed-out emotional structures have been cleared, something more honest and more nourishing can be built in their place. Jupiter stationing direct in your seventh house tonight is activating your closest partnerships. Something that has been stalled or moving backward in a significant one-on-one relationship is about to resume forward momentum. And because Jupiter is exalted tonight, what becomes available in your partnerships in the weeks ahead has the quality of genuine expansion and genuine blessing. Mercury retrograde in your third house is bringing back old conversations, old ideas, and old connections from your immediate environment for a second look. If you are an Aquarius, the recent solar eclipse in your sign is still resonating through your chart and the sky, right? Now is adding layer after layer to that resetting energy. Jupiter stationing direct is happening in your sixth house of daily routines. Health, body, and the work you do in everyday service to something. Jupiter retrograde in the sixth house has been an extraordinarily productive period for the kind of inner work that does not show up on the surface but completely changes the quality of your daily life. A new relationship to your body, a new daily practice, a restructured work environment, an understanding of how you want to spend your ordinary days that is more aligned with who you are becoming rather than who you used to be. All of that has been incubating. And Jupiter direct tonight means it is ready to be lived rather than just imagined. Saturn and Neptune in Aries are in your third house of communication, thinking, learning, and the close connections of your immediate world. The most significant astrological conjunction in 9,000 years is happening in your house of mind and voice, which means the way you think about and talk about reality is being fundamentally restructured right now. Old mental frameworks are dissolving, new ones are being built. The ideas that are available to you in this period that arrive in conversation or in reading or in the surprising turns of your own interior monologue are not ordinary ideas. They are the first articulations of a worldview that is actually proportional to who you are becoming. Mercury retrograde in your second house is asking you to revisit your relationship to your own worth and your own resources. Something about what you have decided you are allowed to have or to charge or to claim is being revised. If you are a Pisces, your ruling planet Neptune is in one of the most significant conjunctions of its entire transit, sitting alongside Saturn at 0 degrees Aries in your second house of finances, values, and your relationship to your own material security and self-worth. Neptune has been doing its work in your second house for some time, gradually dissolving the old stories you carried about money and about what you deserve, and about how the material world does or does not support people like you. Those dissolved stories needed to go. They were built on a foundation of experiences and conclusions that belong to a version of you that is already in the past. And Saturn arriving alongside Neptune in your second house is now providing the replacement structure, just helping you build a new relationship to your own resources, your own earning capacity, your own sense of what you bring to the world and what you are entitled to receive in return for it. That is both spiritually honest and practically functional. Jupiter stationing direct in your fifth house tonight is one of the most creatively and romantically significant transits you can experience. The planet of expansion and blessing turning forward in the house of creative expression, joy, romance, and the parts of life that exist purely because they are beautiful and alive. This is extraordinary for Pisces. Something in your creative life or your romantic life that has been incubating, that has been growing in the dark of this 4-month retrograde period is now ready to step into the light. The creative work you have been too afraid to show, the feeling you have been too careful to express, the part of you that knows how to love with extraordinary depth and has been holding back for reasons that Jupiter direct is now asking you to honestly reconsider. All of it is ready to move forward. Mercury retrograde in your own first house is doing the last bit of clearing, bringing the unspoken things inside you to the surface, not to burden you but to free you, so that what Jupiter is offering in your fifth house can be received with an open rather than a guarded heart. Caught out with an odd, preventing with 5-8k with an oi die out. Dot out, got quite K to get caught at cried Clyde, or should it go quiet? Kide, I might kill you with hot to shook wicked accuse, kikariku, I could I, you cry, you, would I covet to kitty, you, I suke you leak, with a atiki, God, what I with you, I see you ever, you never, okay, you, as you're the guy, I to see what you could ready, you could eat, you could for I really get if you can have a and at your sword of sakes the cases you can So here is where we arrive at the end of this conversation and the beginning of what comes next. Jupiter stations direct tonight at the exaltation degree, the point of maximum power, after 4 months of interior preparation. Saturn and Neptune are holding a conjunction at 0. Aries that will not occur again in our lifetimes or the lifetimes of many generations to come. Mercury retrograde in Pisces is doing its last round of emotional clearing before it turns direct and adds its own voice to the forward chorus. And in 10 days, every planet in the solar system points in the same direction at once. What is happening right now in the sky is not incidental. It is a coordinated delivery. And what is being delivered is the rare and extraordinary combination of a dream that has finally been given bones, a vision that has finally been given a timeline, and a foundation that has been quietly constructed beneath you over the course of months and years that you are now for the first time standing firmly on top of. The question I want to leave you with is not, what does this mean? You know what it means. You felt it while you were listening. The question is, what are you going to do with it? Not tomorrow. Not when everything is perfectly aligned. Not when you feel fully ready, because fully ready is a feeling that almost never arrives on its own. The question is, what are you going to do with it tonight? What is the one thing inside you, the buried ambition, the unnamed longing, the creative impulse you have been talking yourself out of, the love you have been too cautious to fully give, The version of your life that scares you a little because it would require you to be larger than you have been allowing yourself to be. What is that thing? Because Jupiter at its exaltation degree turning direct while Saturn and Neptune build a foundation in the first degree of the zodiac is the sky at its most degree of nodant sites agree, and most specifically of those. I get it as mo with skits, with sequoiat sickwees, with sinquates with the shaquating, sequoian to with the guida kai kika like to suck you me to gozen with the key and with you kusama and I sana kakaya kui kakari I you to know what you to the quick cry you lecture you can hear we I could knock a kiki guy ever couple week you ever craft you okay you get you we I you can say what you got to it kitty can you cock you call you wave you cup like I was you the able work a die David asked it you just I you got to make you because he takes you this kind of sky does not arrive often. And when it does, the people who look back later and say, that was the moment everything changed are the ones who recognized it while it was happening and let themselves be moved by it. The sky has done its work. Now it is yours to do. If something in this video connected to something real in your life, I would genuinely love to hear about it in the comments. Not a general response, but your actual story. What came up for you while you were listening? What felt like it was being spoken directly to something you have been carrying? What shifted in how you see this moment in your life? This community is built on honest conversation, and I mean that. And if you are new here and something about this felt different from what you expected from astrology, from what you expected from this kind of video, that difference is what this channel is for. Stay close, subscribe, because what is coming in the days ahead, as Mercury turns direct, as every planet lines up in forward motion, as the ground that has been prepared by everything we talked about tonight begins to fully reveal itself, you are going to want to be here for the next chapter. The sky is not done speaking, and neither are we.